has been named by Meteo France, bringing a spell of wet and windy weather to us here in the UK, with some Met Office warnings issued for both wind and rain. Here's the storm here, slowly skirting its way into the southwest through the course of the evening, then moving its way eastwards through the course of the night. It's set to bring some very heavy downpours through Wednesday evening, all the way through into Thursday. This rain could be quite persistent at times. It's likely we'll see some localised flooding associated with this. It's not only going to be wet, but it's also going to be windy, particularly around east and southeastern coasts, and eventually through the morning around western coasts of Wales and southwest England. A chance we could see wind speeds between 50 to 60 miles per hour around exposed coast, possibly even slightly higher. So it's likely to be quite impactful as we head through into Thursday. Make sure this afternoon to tie down any loose items you might have floating around in the garden. A little bit brighter across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, though there are going to be plenty of showers. Some clearer skies across western Scotland, but fairly breezy here, and it is set to feel rather chilly through Thursday morning too. But overall, it is going to be a very unsettled picture. The outbreaks of rain are set to linger through much of eastern England through the course of the day. Still very gusty, some quite brisk northerly winds really adding on to the chill as we head through into Thursday. The best of the brightness likely across western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, but still quite breezy with some showers feeding through here. Feeling much chillier, highs only reaching around 12 degrees Celsius. Now through into Friday, it will be a much brighter day for all after a chilly start. We could still see some rain lingering across the east, particularly northeast England, and it's still going to be very blustery around eastern coasts. Brighter elsewhere, some showers at times, but it is going to feel much chillier for all. And as we head towards the weekend, the start of half term for many of us, a little bit brighter, still some occasional showers, but it's certainly going to remain feeling chilly.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
It is going to be the first time in around 500 years that we have had a British monarch and a pope pray publicly together in a show of unity inside the Sistine Chapel inside the Vatican.
The King has arrived in Rome for an historic audience of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV, the first British monarch in over 1,000 years to meet and pray with the Pope, an act steeped in faith and symbolism. This is a powerful gesture of Christian unity in an increasingly secular world. Also tonight.
The serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
The Prime Minister's bogus one-in-one-out deal with France is unravelling as a man sent back under the scheme has sent himself back to Britain on a small boat. With migrant crossings now the highest ever, exceeding 36,900 this year, does the government even want to get control of the Channel crisis? Plus, the Bank of England has been accused of anti-white racism after an internship scheme excludes white applicants. Inflation is stuck at 3.8%, which leads to doubts about its handling of the economy too. So is the Bank of England losing the public's trust? And
down among Brazilians, coffee beans grow by the billions. They got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil.
well, indeed, for centuries man has searched for the secret to eternal youth, from mythical fountains to miracle cures. Now scientists say the answer might be in your cup. Could coffee be the real fount of youth? State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pertinaciously perspicacious panel, political consultant and former Labour candidate Kevin Craig and the former Conservative MP Sir Philip Davis. As always, let me know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now, it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Jacob, thank you very much. The top stories GB News can confirm 215 migrants crossed the Channel illegally today, taking the total for the year to 36,951. GB News provisional figures show the total is 135 more than the number of small boat migrants who crossed during the whole of last year. Despite poor weather conditions in the Channel, 3 boatloads of migrants managed to make the crossing. The Border Force vessel Defender arrived in Dover Harbour just after 7:30 this evening, carrying 64 migrants. It follows 151 who arrived in UK waters earlier in the day today. The total for this year so far is almost 8,800 ahead of the 28,204 who arrived at the same point last year. A migrant sent to France under the government's new one-in, one-out scheme has returned to the UK by small boat, saying he feared for his life in France. The man, now in immigration detention, claims he was trafficked and abused by smugglers and says he didn't feel safe after being sent back. Human rights groups say others removed under the scheme have also faced violence and exploitation, but the Home Office insists anyone who re-enters the UK illegally will be removed. Another candidate to chair the grooming gangs inquiry has pulled out of the process. Jim Gamble was one of 2 people named in reports as a potential option to lead the inquiry. Another, Annie Hudson, withdrew yesterday. The Home Office says it's disappointed that both have pulled out. The Prime Minister has come under fire after 4 survivors quit the government's grooming gangs inquiry, accusing officials of creating a toxic environment and watering it down. Jim Gamble told the Home Secretary the appointment process has been defined more by the vested interests of some, as well as political opportunism and point scoring.
I was totally unaware that they had to have their questions, proofed by someone. And in fact, I totally, I find that abhorrent. That shouldn't happen. These are people who are reflecting their lived experience. As I said to them at the time, if I had been successful, the first thing I would want to do is give them the opportunity to speak to me in groups if that's more comfortable.
And the King is said to be proud that his state visit to the Vatican will stand as a symbol of the unifying journey Anglicans and Catholics are making in a troubled world. The royal couple were formally welcomed by representatives from the Holy See, the government of the Roman Catholic Church in the Vatican, when they stepped from their plane at the military base Campiano 31st Wing Airport in Rome. King Charles and Pope Leo are to become the first British monarch and pontiff to pray together at a church service since the Reformation in the 16th century. This historic moment will be in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. The visit celebrates unity and hope, marking a historic moment for both the Church of England and the Catholic Church. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. The King has landed in Rome for an historic meeting with His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. When the King meets and prays with the Pope on this trip, it will be the first time a British monarch has done so since King Ethelwulf in 855. I'm partly telling you all this because I'm fed up with everybody saying it's the first time since the Reformation. There is absolutely no evidence that any post-conquest king met a pope prior to the Queen meeting Pope John the 23rd in 1961. Ethelwulf went with his son Alfred, and this is important because Alfred becomes Alfred the Great, and it's very exciting because Alfred is the model Christian king. He goes, when he's a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, is inspired by his meeting with Pope Leo, another Pope Leo, and from that really encourages Christianity in this country, in Wessex, which then, thanks to his victory over Guthrum, becomes England. And Guthrum, of course, is converted by Alfred, who stands as his godfather. Now, we can't be certain that Ethelwulf prayed with Pope Leo, but it seems quite likely. There'd be no reason not to. He probably would have attended a papal mass because he would have been fully in communion with the Pope, which, of course, the king isn't. And this is quite interesting because the Act of Settlement, 1701, says that the king must not be reconciled to or in communion with Rome. And this is why the late Queen was very careful. She met popes, she didn't pray with popes, and she was very cautious about attending Mass because she didn't want to be seen to be in communion. But actually, isn't this a wonderful symbolic gesture of Christian unity in a secular world, that when Christianity is besieged on all sides, rather like Constantinople in 1453, besieged from all around by non-Christian forces, isn't it marvellous to see the head of two churches, the Catholic and the Anglican churches, coming together? As Cardinal Sarah noted, this may not be an easy thing to do because of female archbishops and such like, but there can be a coming together of the heads of the two churches, inspiring a degree of unity and an understanding of the fundamentals of faith, the Trinity, and of course the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, and that this helps nations seeking for spiritual guidance, and indeed individuals seeking spiritual guidance in what is pretty much a spiritual desert at the moment. And the symbolism goes further, because today is the feast of Pope St. John Paul II, who visited Britain in 1982, who was the first pope to come here, I should have thought, since Adrian IV, Breakspear, the only English pope. Popes didn't make a great habit of travelling prior to Pope St. John Paul, and he kissed the ground at Gatwick Airport to remind England of its place in the affection of God, and let us hope that once again, as the Diary of Our Lady, a title given to this country by Richard II, and I'm glad to say, never repealed. As always, let me know what you think. Email mailmog@gbnews.com. But I'm now absolutely delighted to be joined by the Reverend Marcus Walker, the Rector of Great St Bartholomew. Rector, thank you very much for coming in. This is really your specialist subject because you spent 4 years in Rome working for the Anglican Church with the Roman Catholic Church.
Yes, that's right. I was the Deputy Director of the Anglican Centre in Rome, which is sort of the Anglican Communion's embassy to the Vatican. And in that, there were many ways in which questions of the monarch and the Pope's relationship came up, particularly with relations between the late Queen and Pope Francis.
And there seems to be, from the late Queen to the King, a change in tone, that the Queen perhaps was very constitutionally cautious, was very well aware of 1701, but also very well aware of the mood of the country in 1952, where relations between the two churches were distinctly less friendly.
That's true, although she moved the relationship quite considerably, and quite often with considerable controversy. She was the first monarch to attend a Catholic service, and Ian Paisley protested.
This was
outside.
the funeral of the King of Belgium.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And Ian Paisley protested about that quite fiercely, physically protested about it. And she was the first monarch to meet a pope, as you've said. However, King Charles very clearly has a strong ecumenical sense. He has a huge warmth for the Orthodox Church, and clearly a huge warmth for the Roman Catholic Church. And actually, to a certain extent, that much misunderstood phrase, to be a defender of faith rather than the faith, was intended to be about sticking together as people of faith, particularly Christians, in an increasingly secular world. And it was rather naughtily used by Paddy Ashdown, who was the one who heard it,
right,
to suggest something slightly darker.
But it also tells you something about the King's own personal faith, that this is important to him. He is a Christian, and it's very interesting that even when His Majesty isn't well, 2 of his overseas visits have been to see a dying Pope Francis and the new Pope, Pope Leo XIV, that this is clearly something very personal to him as the representative of faith, of Christian faith in this country.
Yes, and you can see that. You can also see it at the coronation, when the oil with which he was anointed was blessed by the Patriarch of Jerusalem. His view of being really the last monarch who was anointed.
Yeah, well, the only other one is the Pope, who is anointed as a bishop. But
actually, strictly speaking, also Tonga. The Methodists anoint him.
I didn't know about Tonga. And I don't think the Shintos anoint the emperor. But it is remarkable, and it's also a wonderful historic succession, because the anointing of the king is a ceremony that St Dunstan would completely recognise.
And created, effectively, certainly for the English.
Yes. And that the king is going to accept a post title as a confrater and have a special chair in the Vatican. This really is taking collaboration a long way, isn't it?
Yes, hugely. It was something, in fact, we were working on back when I was at the Anglican Centre, because there are 4 papal basilicas, and each of them historically had a royal protector. And there was the Emperor had St Peter's, the King of France had the Lateran, the King of Spain had St Mary Major, and the King of England had St Paul's outside the walls. And we realised that the President of France has inherited the role of protector of the Lateran, and is still a canon of the Lateran Cathedral, even when it's a total atheist like François Hollande. So the idea came about that maybe something could be created for then the Queen. But we were searching around for whether there was actual evidence for it. And now either they've found it or they've created this post of confrater with a special chair for the king in the Abbey, one of these holiest sites in Rome, where he will have this special role resurrecting the pre-Reformation position of protector.
Of the Church. And we like this because of its historic resonance, but we see a country that is increasingly secular. Do you think this boosts faith in this country? Do you think people seeing the pictures on the television of the King and the Pope praying together will actually be inspired to realise that this is a fundamental truth?
I think so. I hope so. I mean, one of the constant criticism of Christianity, going right the way back to Ammianus Marcellinus in the 4th century, says, wild beasts in the forests have no hatred greater for each other than Christians have for one another. And one of the great criticisms of Christians is we're constantly sniping at each other. And here we have the head of the Catholic Church and the Supreme Governor of the Church of England really visibly walking together as people of faith and showing that whatever our historic disagreements, the cross and the resurrection binds us far closer.
And that it is a cooperation, but it's not going to be a unity, because the Anglican Church has gone in very different ways. The new Archbishop of Canterbury and Cardinal Sarah saying there will never be women priests in the Catholic Church. It's simply impossible. Means that we're not going to formally close the breach, but that there is a spirit of cooperation within our own spheres.
I think that's true. I mean, it cuts both ways. The great increase in papal authority in the 19th century in Vatican I also sort of changed
It
the
was formalising the position of the Pope, not changing it.
But I think one of the interesting questions about Christian unity is what we mean. Because when we look out at the vast array of churches and positions on different issues, either when we say we pray for unity as Christ prayed at the Last Supper, we mean everybody is going to agree with me. Or we say, actually, I'm going to see in you a Christian, recognise your baptism, even if I'm going to disagree on some profound matters, and say, I'm terribly sorry I can't receive communion from you. Or say, I'm terribly sorry, I just don't agree about that. But I do see you as a Christian.
And I recognise your baptism, which, of course, we do across across most of the Trinitarian churches.
That's right.
Thank you very much for joining me. Very grateful.
Thank you.
In a moment...
The serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
He is such an old humbug, isn't he? The Prime Minister's bogus one-in, one-out deal with France has unravelled as a man sent back under the scheme has returned to Britain on a small boat. Does the government want to get control of the Channel crisis?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
360,000 people are without a home, thousands of whom are on the street, but most living in terrible, terrible conditions, bedsits, awful B&Bs above rows of shops and hostels. 160,000 of those are children. Can you imagine trying to perform at school or in your job? And this is a crisis, Dawn, and it costs billions. That's the worst thing. We spend about £4 billion a year dealing with this, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Well, let's talk about those 160,000 children, because that's the thing that affected me when I read it this morning. Couldn't believe the numbers of children that are homeless in this country. How is this happening, Andy?
What's happening, Ellie? It's complex, but the biggest single issue, the simplest issue, is that we do not have enough homes. We don't build enough. To put it really simply, if you have a population of 10 people and you have 9 homes, somebody is going to be without a home, and that's what we've got. So when we don't build enough, somebody loses out. It's gone on for decades, by the way. Somebody loses out, and it's always going to be the poorest. It's the people who live the most chaotic lives, or have the least money, are going to be at that bottom and falling out of it. And it's absolute chaos. Ellie, the worst thing about this, it's really fixable. We can get people off the streets. We can create the medium-term accommodation to transition people from the streets, from shelters, into more permanent places. We can do this by reprioritising some of the 2.8 billion. We spend 2.8 billion quid just sticking people into really expensive overnight B&Bs. As I say, awful, crummy places above kebab shops where kids are growing up for months on end and struggling with lack of space. We can fix it, but there just isn't the political will.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and we were talking about the King and the Pope meeting in Rome, and the mail mogs have come in, have been brought in on the wings of angels. Cooper says, I was christened an Anglican, but I do have an awe for the Roman Catholic Church, especially its longevity and lineage back to St. Peter, the first Pope. The country severed ties with the Catholic Church, but we do still have an historic connection to it. Many generations of our ancestors and kings worshipped under its banner. And Ryan says, sorry, Jacob, it's taken hundreds of years to get to this point for a reason. By all means, meet the man, but praying together just for the sake of it undermines his own coronation oath to uphold the Protestant faith. Oh, well, Ryan, I shall pray tonight for your conversion to Rome, which will make everybody much happier. The Prime Minister's bogus one-in, one-out deal with France has backfired after today it was revealed a man sent back to France under the UK scheme has sent himself back to Britain on a small boat. The asylum seeker, who one has to have a sneaking admiration for, is now held in a UK immigration detention centre. He says he was enslaved and abused by smugglers in northern France and fled back to Britain fearing for his life. The news exacerbates the embattled Prime Minister's problems, as GBNews confirms another 220 migrants arrived today, surpassing last year's total by 140, and the number's gone up. Since I spoke to you in the introduction, it's now 36,956 crossings so far this year, and it's probably gone up even more whilst I'm speaking. Does the government even want to solve the migrant crisis, or can't it be bothered? Well, I'm joined now by international security and border control expert Henry Bolton. Henry, thank you for joining me. This chap, one has to rather admire that off he goes, gets a small boat in, gets sent back, gets another small boat. But it just shows the system isn't working.
The system's not working at all, Jacob, and nor was it ever going to. And the entire thing, I couldn't help feeling, and I said it many times when it was first being introduced, that actually it's just a political sort of way of appeasing the British population who were saying, for God's sake, do something about it. It was never going to be effective. It's basically working out, I think, at the moment, to around about, for every 263 that are brought in, we're sending one out, something like that. So it's not one in, one out by any means. And the deterrent factor is zero. And the smashing the business gangs model is, that's laughable. So does the government actually want to do this or not? I mean, it's a difficult one, because I think some people in the Labour Party do want to address this, but there are others whose votes and constituency is absolutely in a different camp. So
all right. Henry, you're an international security and border control expert. How do you do it? Assume they want to do it. We wanted to do it before. How do you do it and make it work?
Well, it's a very easy question to ask, but a longer answer, but I'll try and keep it very brief. One of the things that the United Kingdom lacks, and many other countries have got, I've helped 14 different other countries to do this, is to develop and implement a fully integrated and comprehensive cross-governmental national strategy to manage our borders. Now that happens at it's got to incorporate land, sea, and we have got land. The tunnel is a land border crossing, land, sea, and air borders, but also at the international, regional, and national levels, as well as locally, because every part of our coast is different. There's a whole range of different threats, Jacob. It's not just about people. I keep reminding people about that. All of the cocaine, all of the heroin in this country comes across our borders. So we've got to have that terrible phrase, a whole of government approach here. And to do that, you've got to have somebody who is above one single government department to pull it together. Because otherwise, in my experience, what you have is you have different government people, subordinate people, whether they're police officers or working for a border agency or an intelligence agency, subordinate to a junior minister, subordinate to a secretary of state, subordinate to whoever, all trying to coordinate something. It doesn't work because they have to keep sending decisions up their chains. But we've got to approach this. At the moment, the Prime Minister today has been hosting heads of government, I understand, from across the Balkans. The reality is that is a good thing to do, because we have got to apply a filter at every stage of the flow to the United Kingdom so as to alleviate the pressure on our own borders. When it comes to our own borders, they're not. Our border agencies are not coordinated. They're not coherent. They're not structured and resourced or trained appropriately for the job. Even the legal tools are all over the place. It's chaotic. It's rather like the NHS in some respects. It's a mess. So we've got to put all that together. Now, that's a big piece of work. It'll take 8 months to do. And I think we can reduce the flow of boats by 80% in 8 months.
All right, well, that's a very attractive proposition. Henry, thank you very much indeed. But let me go to my most preternaturally perspicacious panel, the political consultant, former Labour candidate Kevin Craig, and the former Conservative MP, Sir Philip Davies. Kevin, let me give you a chance to defend the government. Am I just scoring cheap points by noting that this man pops back again and that the one in, one out looks a bit pathetic?
You are, and I'm disappointed in you, if I'm honest, because I was with you on your first item as a fellow Catholic, Jacob. But let me reframe this discussion for viewers and listeners, which is the Labour government will be judged on this at the next election, rightly so. The Home Secretary, I think, described the small boat numbers as disgraceful, or words to that effect, in the last 48 hours. This was never going to get done in the first year. I think, and trying to talk about this in a way that's not doing what you did in scoring cheap points, which I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to mention tonight the Conservative record on this. What I'm going to say is that returns are up, enforced removals are up, use of hotels is coming down, we've got hundreds of more officers, and the big picture answer to everything tonight is that it's going to take time.
Okay, you're quite entitled to mention the Conservative record.
I wasn't going to.
No, but it's important because the Conservatives wanted to stop the small boats too. It wasn't a lack of will, and I'm not accusing Sir Keir Starmer of a lack of will.
Well, in your cheeky little intro, you said, is he bothered? They're really worried.
Well, I think some Labour MPs don't mind that much, but it's not a lack of will, it's a lack of willingness to take the decisions that are actually necessary. And listening to Henry was really important to get the structures right. To be sending people back to France isn't enough. They need to be going back to countries they don't like living in.
Well, I think where I do agree with you, and I suspect in due course Philip, is that this individual said, oh no, I've gone back to France and it's so terrifying, I need to come back again. I don't think any of us buy that. But the fact is, Henry, I'm afraid, is, you know, I know he's got services to sell there, but the government, ultimately, it's the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary are on this. You've got a new Immigration Minister, Mike Tapp, who we see out in the Channel almost as often as some of your former colleagues. And I think Labour is not unafraid of taking very difficult decisions. But I always say, I accept for people it's not happening quick enough.
All right, I mean, Kev makes a fair point that they need a bit of time, but it needs more than that. It needs an absolute will, and I don't think you can do it without coming out of the European Convention on Human Rights and repealing the Human Rights Act.
Yeah, that's the issue. I don't doubt that Labour want to sort this out. I don't buy this argument that Labour are happy for all these people to be coming over. It's killing them politically, to be honest, and so of course they want to sort it out. But I think the point is, Jacob, as you alluded to, they're not prepared to take the decisions that would sort it out. And it's not the most important thing to them. So if you ask the Labour Party, would you be prepared, if it needed to scrap the Human Rights Act in order to solve this problem, which I suspect it does, are you prepared to do that? Their answer would be no. They're not prepared to do that. They want to do something. They want it to miraculously solve itself. But actually, it's not so important for them that they'd be prepared to sacrifice the Human Rights Act, which is ultimately what it will take to sort it out.
And didn't we already show, with the failure of the Rwanda plan, that we couldn't get that to work without changing the human rights approach, because the courts kept on knocking it back?
Yeah, exactly. We've got to scrap and it's not the European Convention of Human Rights in particular, because you can ignore their rulings. It's the fact that the Human Rights Act puts that into British law, and we can't avoid the British court rulings. We've got to scrap the Human Rights Act, and then if we did that, the Rwanda scheme would work. It was the right scheme. It was the right solution. You have to be able to remove people from the country, and it's going to take scrapping the Human Rights Act. And unfortunately, Labour just will not, and certainly Keir Starmer won't do it as a human rights lawyer.
Well, I think the the Rwanda scheme, there's just differences of opinion about it. And okay, the Labour view is that it was so expensive and it wasn't going to be a deterrent. But if you, over time, allow all these measures that Labour are doing, more officers, more work with our European partners, boats have been seized in Eastern Europe this week that were taking hundreds of people across at the time. In time, Labour will be judged on this or not. And Philip is right, you know, that electorally, if we don't get a grip on it, you know, the government knows this. Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer, what one of the biggest themes in the pre-election briefings we had, the word is security, right? And it's electoral, basically, and you both know this, having been in the House of Commons. So Labour's very committed to do it, and I think under our new Home Secretary, I disagree. I think there are some Labour voices who say the ECHR need to be looked at, and the government is actually committed to a review of some of its provisions, to be fair. But you guys are quite, and I'll say you, Jacob, in particular, you're attached to this. We can't do it without the ECHR. Well, on the Labour benches, we think the hotel use is coming down. Enforced removals, we're pulling more people out. We're doing all of this while talking about the positive benefits of immigration, and we will get there.
I've let you get away with the hotel bit twice. But that's just moving them to other places. That's not actually getting them out of the country.
But hotel use is down.
But they're moving into homes of multiple application.
But returns are up.
It's not the same. But
35,000 total returns in our first year, 9,000 more than you.
OK, you've gone up by a little, but the number of boats coming in on small boats has gone up. But the thing that Labour doesn't seem to get is that we tried all these things. We tried reforming the ECHR. We tried doing things within the current legal setup, and they failed. And it's sort of starting from 10 years ago rather than where we are now and what we should have learned.
Well, I was going to say you tried everything, but in terms of cooperating with our European partners to try and get a better grip on this...
All right. I'm going to stop you on that because we also tried that before, and that was a fat lot of use.
I shouldn't have let you do that to me.
We took more people from there than they were sent back. Anyway, we're really lucky because we've had a spokesman from the Home Office who said we will not accept any abuse of our borders and we will do everything in our power to remove those without the legal right to be here. Individuals who are returned under the pilot and subsequently attempt to re-enter the UK illegally will be removed. Well, they're not doing everything in their power. It's such nonsense. The spokesman for France's Interior Ministry, I mean, this is a wonderful joke statement, which I ought to do in a low accent. France will implement Dublin transfers. Removal of asylum seekers to the European Union country where they submitted their initial application within the overall framework of its migration relations with other member states in accordance with the community. We're not a member state, whoever wrote that. I mean, that's the biggest load of bilge I've ever read out as a statement since I've been doing this, monsieur. Anyway, thank you very much, Henry Bolton, and to my panel. The Bank of England has been accused of anti-white racism after an internship scheme excludes white applicants. Inflation stuck at 3.8%, which leads to doubt about its handling the economy. Is the Bank of England losing the public's trust?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Bad news if you're off on holiday for the half-term period. Northern parts of Europe, there's still plenty of unsettled weather. Some heavy rain, thunderstorms and also some strong gusty winds at times. Now through Thursday across much of Spain and Portugal, largely settled, though there could be some showers in places. The main area of the unsettled weather are going to be in parts of France, Germany, also Italy and parts of Greece, where we could see some quite intense showers, some thunderstorms and some strong gusty winds, particularly across France. More sunshine around on Friday before a return of the showers over the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Benjamin has been named by Meteo France, bringing a spell of wet and windy weather to us here in the UK, with some Met Office warnings issued for both wind and rain. Here's the storm here, slowly skirting its way into the southwest through the course of the evening, then moving its way eastwards through the course of the night. It's set to bring some very heavy downpours through Wednesday evening, all the way through into Thursday. This rain could be quite persistent at times. It's likely we'll see some localised flooding associated with with this. It's not only going to be wet, but it's also going to be windy, particularly around east and southeastern coasts, and eventually through the morning around western coasts of Wales and southwest England. A chance we could see wind speeds between 50 to 60 miles per hour around exposed coast, possibly even slightly higher. So it's likely to be quite impactful as we head through into Thursday. Make sure this afternoon to tie down any loose items you might have floating around in the garden. A little bit brighter across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, though there are going to be plenty of showers. Some clearer skies across western Scotland, but fairly breezy here, and it is set to feel rather chilly through Thursday morning too. But overall, it is going to be a very unsettled picture. The outbreaks of rain are set to linger through much of eastern England through the course of the day. Still very gusty, some quite brisk northerly winds really adding on to the chill as we head through into Thursday. The best of the brightness likely across western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, but still quite breezy with some showers feeding through here. Feeling much chillier, highs only reaching around 12 degrees Celsius. Now through into Friday, it will be a much brighter day for all after a chilly start. We could still see some rain lingering across the east, particularly northeast England, and it's still going to be very blustery around eastern coasts. Brighter elsewhere, some showers at times, but it is going to feel much chillier for all. And as we head towards the weekend, the start of half term for many of us, a little bit brighter, still some occasional showers, but it's certainly going to remain feeling chilly.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, we were discussing migration, and the mail mogs have come in, I think, by boat over the channel. Shepherd says, protecting our borders is the first job of any government. The Conservatives failed to do this and were destroyed at the ballot box. Labour can expect an even bigger kicking at this rate. And Dan says, we knew the so-called one-in, one-out deal was a ridiculous scheme from day one. This just proves it. And Maria, it was doomed to fail the moment the government put any faith in the French. Well, thank you very much for those mail mogs. We can now move on to the Bank of England, which has joined MI5 and the Bar Council with a racist recruitment policy, as it too now has a race-based internship, while it's failing in its main task of economic management, keeping inflation at 2%. It's nearly double that. The bank's £5,000 Black Future Leaders scheme, which excludes white applicants, has sparked anger from Tory MPs and even Elon Musk, who's a car manufacturer, who called it anti-white racism. Meanwhile, with inflation stuck at 3.8%, economists warn the bank has misjudged the pace of recovery and may be forced into early rate cuts to rescue a slowing economy. Has the Bank of England lost the public's trust? Let me go to my panel. Philip, the Bank of England is useless, isn't it?
Well, its record isn't great, but I mean, this scheme of excluding white people from it, I mean, there's this type of thing that makes my blood boil, to be perfectly honest. I mean, one of the sections of society that probably do worst in this country are white working class boys. And why on earth would the Bank of England want to exclude a white working class talented boy who wants to get on in the Bank of England and say, oh, actually, no, we can't have it. Actually, this black old Etonian is actually much more deserving of a chance than you are. It's the kind of thing that builds up a huge amount of resentment. It does amongst me, so it must amongst the public at large. And if they focus more on sorting out their real job rather than this sort of politically correct nonsense, they might get somewhere. But this type of scheme has got to be stopped. It's completely outrageous.
I mean, I was with Philip until he wanted to discriminate against old Etonians, but he's got the right point, hasn't he? That the poorest in society are not necessarily poorest on the basis of race. They may be poorer because of other factors. and that if the most prestigious organisations in British society, the Bank of England, MI5, the Bar Council, consistently discriminate against poor white boys, that's shockingly unfair and creates anger in the country.
Well, I am very more relaxed than you two about a scheme that wants to promote diversity in the institution of the Bank of England. I would also really support a scheme that focused exclusively on the white working class, because I, like Philip, believe that, and I come from it, is underrepresented. So I support a scheme that also did that. I do think, Jacob, that quoting Elon Musk, who is a bloke who a few weeks ago was dialing in to the Tommy Robinson-led march, it's like he's not a responsible voice, I think, that belongs in this debate.
He's quite a powerful voice,
but he's not a good bloke in terms of the way he was whipping up, I think, racial hatred between people. Do I think the main focus of the bank, however, is the stewardship of our economy? Yes. Do I think that there are people there? I mean, I think of the Deputy Governor Sam Woods, incredibly talented person. I think they do, on the whole, a good job. And inflation, I think, is on the way down.
Job on inflation.
No, but you're always on the case of the Bank of England, and I think
I think the Bank of England had one job and it failed, and the Monetary Policy Committee, to talk to diversity of opinion. They have no diversity of opinion in the Monetary Policy Committee. They don't even look at the monetary aggregate.
But that's because you don't agree with them.
Well, they got it wrong. They bungled. Well, they allowed inflation to get up to 11%.
Well, some of that was possibly, some would say, linked to government policy at the time. But if we go to today, inflation is on the way down slowly.
And it was at 2% when the Tories left office.
And there are billions of investment coming into this country under this Labour government, which is exciting.
That's fine. That's nothing to do with the Bank of England.
It's the economy which listeners and viewers care about.
The Bank of England had one job, which it failed to do. It had massive quantitative easing during COVID, which was not a credit crisis as it had been in 2008. It was simply a supply disjunction, and therefore putting more money in was inevitably inflationary. Anyone could have told them that, and John Redwood did. I mean, people were saying this.
But didn't your government support what they did at the time?
They're independent. They were given legal independence by Gordon Brown.
Yes, but didn't, in terms of policy statements, didn't all the main parties support what they did at the time? And COVID was a crisis that we did need to do quantitative easing.
But as soon as you criticise the Bank of England, people like you say you're criticising the Bank of England. I mean, it just seems to me they're not up to the job.
I mean, look, I think by anybody's standards, they failed in what they've been asked to do, and they've caused the economic problems in this country to be worse rather than better. And tying it into this scheme, I would say that any organisation that doesn't believe that people should be recruited on merit, in my opinion, isn't really fit to be running anything, to be perfectly honest. And maybe if they did actually recruit people based on merit rather than on some kind of politically correct target quota system, they might perform a bit better.
They might have a chance of doing better. And the one organisation that ought to be most merit-based is surely a bank, because of what it deals is in money. And as Vespasian said, money has no smell.
You would like to think so.
Can I ask a question there? Isn't it possible sometimes, and I agree, Philip had made a good point, we have to look at diversity sometimes, because the idea that somebody, they might come from a really moneyed background, right, and they might happen to be black, and the idea they'd get in on a scheme like this is ridiculous. So I think socioeconomic privilege is interesting. But isn't it the case, Jacob, but isn't it sometimes that in our wonderful country that some pools of talent, and it might be the white working class where education isn't cherished and encouraged, don't we sometimes need to do things to make sure that we're getting as much talent from poorly off white working class people as we are Etonians?
Positive discrimination is still discrimination, and the problem is, if people have been discriminated against in the past, the solution isn't to reverse the discrimination. The solution is to remove the discrimination, and how this is like lazy discrimination reversal, and I don't think that can ever be the solution.
And it's improving education, isn't it?
Well, absolutely.
And we may disagree on the ways to doing that, but that is the fundamental, to increase the chances of everybody leaving school.
Absolutely, in tandem with, because it all takes time, that's all. And I just think that it doesn't always have to be such a divisive topic to say, well, look, don't we sometimes need to give some groups a hand up to speed things up, while also trying to make sure that it isn't ridiculous when it's spoken about down the pub?
Right. I mean, I tend to think you should be patient, and that these things evolve. But anyway, we've had a message from a Bank of England spokesman who said, as a public institution whose duty is to serve all the people of this country, we seek to ensure that our workforce broadly reflects our society. With this in mind, we offer a variety of programmes and opportunities, of which the Black Future Leaders Sponsorship Programme is one. We are proud of our country. God save the King.
Absolute tripe. I mean, I've got to say, Jacob, it's absolute tripe. I mean, a certain proportion of our country are criminals, and the Bank of England are going to have a certain proportion of their workforce as criminals.
Of course they will, all workforces. Think of Parliament. Anyway, thank you to my panel. In a moment.
Down among Brazilians, coffee beans grow by the billions. They got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil.
They've got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil. For centuries, man has searched for the secret to eternal youth, from mythical fountains to miracle cures. Now, scientists say the answer might be in your cup. Could coffee be the real fount of youth?
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Since the earliest days of civilization, people have sought the secret to remaining youthful, from the mythic waters of the Fountain of Youth to the countless remedies promised by alchemists and apothecaries. Humanity has long tried to hold back time's unforgiving advance. But a new study suggests the answer could lie in the humble cup of coffee. A recent study claims that regularly drinking 4 to 6 cups of coffee a day could reduce the risk of frailty. Well, I'm now joined by my panellists, Philip Davis and Kevin Craig. And Philip, I can explain my youthful appearance on drinking lots of cups of coffee. It seems to me it's amazingly successful.
Well, I don't think anyone would want to ask me about the secret of being youthful. I mean, I think I was grey over at about 30, so I'm the last person to ask, and that's probably why I'm a tea drinker mainly. A good Yorkshire tea is what I would recommend, but based on that, they might be onto something. The thing is with all this stuff, it's all rubbish, isn't it? I mean, every time you read in the paper something's bad for you, and then a few months later you read exactly the same thing apparently is actually good for you. If you listen to all this advice, you'd never eat anything and you'd never drink anything, and then you'd always eat everything and you'd drink everything. I mean, it's just absolute. I mean, Lord knows where they get all this rubbish from.
I run a filter on this, on coffee.
See what we've done?
I read auto-filter coffee. That's right. That's right. It's an instant.
Very good. Keep going.
They'll grind through all these plants. This many beans in every cup. But I just ignore the ones that say coffee's bad for you and read the ones that say coffee's good for you, because it cheers me up.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I don't know what's got into Philip over there. Like, this is all rubbish. These things are scientifically, there's evidence. So I think the key thing I took from today, what was it? There was 2 to 3 cups a day might give you an extra 2 to 3 years of life. Right, that's worth listeners and viewers thinking about. In the same way, it is what we talked about before on this show, which is don't bother with smoking, and measure your blood pressure now and again. And coffee, I think, it could be great for those of us in the business community. It could help us with an older workforce. The study says that it increases bone density. I'm excited by this, and I hope that people take it up. And I'm sorry if that means a reduction in tea consumption in the parts of the country where it's very popular, Philip.
I mean, the cost of coffee in these coffee places, I mean, it can't be good for you. It's certainly not good for your wealth. Whether it's good for your health or not, I don't know.
This is true.
I'm too mean to buy coffee in those places.
Quite right,
their coffee's pretty horrible.
Must have some Yorkshire blood in you, Jake.
I made it. I go for instant coffee. I go for Alta Rica, which I've been drinking for years, and I drink lots and lots of it, and it costs you a few pence per cup. It's not this stuff from Starbucks.
Are you a coffee drinker then?
I am, yeah, and I try to keep I try not to overdo it, because there is also, if you do overdo coffee, I mean, it can go the wrong way for you. It can lead to problems with sleep and irregular heart rhythms and all of that stuff. But I think the 2 to 3 cups a day, as well as being an enjoyable drink, has got important benefits for the health of
Right, I'm at the higher end of this scale. I'm 5 to 6 cups
Yeah, you
a
need to
day.
be careful.
But I find the more you drink, the less it affects your sleep. I never lose sleep because of coffee, because I've got so much in my system, it doesn't make any difference.
Well, I mean, if it works for you, Jacob, that's good. But the study today, I was really enthusiastic to see that there's lower frailty, better health in older workers. And I think that, unlike Phil over there, who's ranting every bit of health advice, despite being in good nick himself now, there is evidence here to say that healthier ageing is enhanced by coffee drinking. And I think that's interesting.
Well, you heard it here first, that the thing to do is drink more coffee. Lots of coffee a day keeps the doctor away. We hadn't got time for Ella May Morse, who would serenade us on coffee in the way that old Blue Eyes did at the beginning of the segment, so I'm sorry about that, but you can look her up on YouTube. That's all from me. Up next, it's Alex Armstrong in for the one and only Patrick Christie's. Alex, what's on your programme this evening?
Well, thank you, Jacob. I've just had a coffee myself, actually, so I've got loads of energy for the show tonight. Of course, Jess Phillips is at the centre of the storm tonight. We will be going and talking about that, plus 11,000 in, 42 out, 1 back in again. What is going on? Join me in a couple of minutes.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Benjamin has been named by Meteo France, bringing a spell of wet and windy weather to us here in the UK, with some Met Office warnings issued for both wind and rain. Here's the storm here, slowly skirting its way into the southwest through the course of the evening, then moving its way eastwards through the course of the night. It's set to bring some very heavy downpours through Wednesday evening, all the way through into Thursday. This rain could be quite persistent at times. It's likely we'll see some localised flooding associated with with this. It's not only going to be wet, but it's also going to be windy, particularly around east and southeastern coasts, and eventually through the morning around western coasts of Wales and southwest England. A chance we could see wind speeds between 50 to 60 miles per hour around exposed coast, possibly even slightly higher. So it's likely to be quite impactful as we head through into Thursday. Make sure this afternoon to tie down any loose items you might have floating around in the garden. A little bit brighter across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, though there are going to be plenty of showers. Some clearer skies across western Scotland, but fairly breezy here, and it is set to feel rather chilly through Thursday morning too. But overall, it is going to be a very unsettled picture. The outbreaks of rain are set to linger through much of eastern England through the course of the day. Still very gusty, some quite brisk northerly winds really adding on to the chill as we head through into Thursday. The best of the brightness likely across western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, but still quite breezy with some showers feeding through here. Feeling much chillier, highs only reaching around 12 degrees Celsius. Now through into Friday, it will be a much brighter day for all after